Wow. So thank you so much for your presence here in the New Horizon. But we still use the book of Joel, A New Horizon, just like the beautiful background. It's like, wow, that was quite something. It's beautiful to see how every chapter is different, even though it is all Joel, obviously. And so today's definitely a different chapter too. And this is chapter 9. In fact, he added chapter to the book, an extra chapter to the recommended chapters. But the editor had the idea that it was good to include it in as some kind of bonus chapter. And I agree. It's a great chapter to use too today. Because it literally also introduces a principle or a way of looking at what is occurring that really is like a possibility to open up your consciousness even more. So it's like the totality of the occurrence of the awakening, the totality of the truth of you is in fact being introduced in terms that it becomes very hard to deny. And why am I saying it like this? Well, as a human being, you're in fact the manifestation of the denial in first ideas about yourself, because you see yourself as a separate identity. Like you actually have a necessity to awaken from something because you made something, you created something that has no reality. You validated it, you identified with it, but it has no reality. It is your dream, as we call it. Now here Joel brings in a whole new idea, and that is like, if there is such thing as the totality of the truth of you, of the truth of God, then that excludes a lot of things that aren't actually there at all. And we have assumed it, we have treasured it, valued it, and we have been suffering through it, and we have done all kinds of things with it. But one thing we didn't do, and that is allowing ourselves to be unhypnotized by what is actually, what can be itself, no matter what happens. Like what is true about you is already there. It is just that you have hypnotized yourself as an idea of being separate from God. So in other words, you're the manifestation of the denial of the love of God, as you know yourself as a human being. Now this is changing in you, otherwise you would not be listening to this. So there is hope. There is hope of returning back in your consciousness, returning back to this wholeness of being. You cannot lose it. So in fact the unhypnotizing part is in fact the undoing that is taking place within you by recognizing, oh, well, this is not the truth, it is limited. Oh, this is not the truth, it isn't whole. This is not the truth because it is a conflict. So if we know there's such thing as a perfect harmony, then this cannot be true. What I'm seeing cannot be the truth, cannot be my reality. Now Joel does this in many ways, you will see. And so that inspired me to say, to let some words come to me that I'm going to share in the meditation. Because it was like, oh, this is so great. Joel uses the idea of apples from an apple tree. Like, hello, this is logic here. Apples fall from an apple tree. They don't fall from the orange tree. No, they fall from the apple tree. And this inspired me to continue on that, but in a different way. So we didn't do really a meditation in a new world, or in a new horizon. Yeah, a new horizon in a new world. That would be great. Why not? So we didn't really do a meditation here. in this series of meetings, and that was conscious decision. But here there's a necessity, like there would be no easier way to convey to you the idea of today. So that's why I'm going to share it with you, and we will be still with it. So there's apples grow on apple trees, oranges on orange trees. The flower doesn't decide its color. The wind doesn't decide upon its direction. The rivers don't flow upstream. Sun rays warm the earth. Waves don't determine their height. You do not determine who you are, but in your dreams. You cannot be perfectly created and be something else too. You cannot be surrounded by the love of God and be lonely. You cannot be a beloved son in whom I'm well pleased and feel worthless. You cannot be given all power and feel powerless. You cannot be abundance and lack something else. You cannot be perfect happiness and be in pain. You cannot be all the love in the universe and be something else too.
Non et. Les pommes poussent sur les pommiers, les oranges sur les orangers. La fleur ne décide pas de sa couleur. Le vent ne décide pas de sa direction. Les rivières ne coulent pas en amont. Les rayons du soleil réchauffent les vagues de la terre et ne déterminent pas leur hauteur. Tu ne détermines pas qui tu es, mais dans tes rêves, vous ne pouvez pas être parfaitement créé et être autre chose aussi. Vous ne pouvez pas être entouré de l'amour de Dieu et être seul. Vous ne pouvez pas être un fils bien-aimé en qui je me plais et me sens sans valeur. On ne peut pas te donner tout le pouvoir et te sentir impuissant. Tu ne peux pas être l'abondance et manquer de quelque chose. Tu ne peux pas être le bonheur parfait et souffrir. Vous ne pouvez pas être tout l'amour de l'univers et être autre chose aussi.
Thank you so much for joining. That's so lovely. So we continue with the chapter, and you can be as much in quiet and so deep as you want in yourself. That's perfectly all right. So it doesn't take anything away from what I'm going to say. No, it actually supports it too. That's great. So by you being so quiet and so receptive, you allow me to share something that otherwise would not be heard. That's really depending on, it's like we're doing this as one. There's not me saying something to you. No, this is a recognition of totality. We see that in everything. Like, I'm not somebody telling you something. No, you asked me to tell you this as a inner recognition of our oneness with each other. Like, I would not be able to tell you anything if it was me telling you something. What would I possibly tell you? So this is really great. And I love to refer to it because of the fact that it's like your total presence here is most important. It's like it's most important. It will determine what is actually going to happen here in terms of receiving what can be given. So this chapter has the title No End. And no end with A-N-D, and not anything else. No end. So it has nothing to do with ends. It has nothing to do with endings. No, it has to do with a new horizon. And that's why it is such a beautiful, say, chapter at the so-called end of the book, actually opening it up even more. It's like this is a beginning. These are the essential chapters for the beginning of your journey. This is the essential chapters of recognizing who you are and allowing that to develop. Like a new horizon is something that is not discovered, like it's not already known. Now you're going to discover it. And a continual, say, discovery, in fact, continual open up, allowing each moment to be born in you, and in total quiet, in total receptivity, and allowing every moment to be whole. That's in fact the invitation. Now Jill says it in different ways. So he starts off in the chapter with this. I'll share that with you. Chapter 9, From Realization of Oneness, also one of my favorite books actually. Say no end. There's only one life, Jill says, and that life is God. There's only one soul, and that soul is God. There's only one spirit. There's only one law. There's only one creative principle, God. So this is a declaration, right? There's only one God, there's one life, there's one soul, there's one spirit, there's one law, one creative principle, God. The totality of being, like God is, and then we don't even know what to say anymore. The totality of all. In other words, there's nothing outside of that. The moment, and this is of course the relationship with the chapter title, the moment you see God and something else, you are hypnotized by that and thinking that there can be something else too. Well, then you cannot get rid of the appearance because you have made something your reality, and that is the something else. Not God, the something else has become your reality. You can't get rid of it. And that's not just a bit of play of words, not at all. So it's like, here's the essence of waking up out of a dream. Like, first I'm in the experience of the totality of God. Now suddenly something occurs. I find something else. And something that isn't perfect, that isn't God, that isn't totality, that isn't like something else. Now I see that, and because I see that, what my mind does is make it real for myself. I see it. I see sickness. I experience pain. I see death. I see all kinds of things. I'm using my eyes to see something else than the totality of the love of God. I'm validating that. In that, I define myself as a separate object, in a separate world, in a gigantic universe, but separate. There's no way for me to travel to any stars. There's no way for me to even make it to the moon. I'm completely landlocked on this mud ball called planet Earth. I made that my reality. And I think everything is happening there, and that's my life. That I'm actually like, so one thing comes the other. I start to make my reality, my own idea of what reality is. But I forget one thing, of course, that it has nothing to do with God, that it is a limitation to the X degree, you could say. It's a total limitation. I cannot run for more than, 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, a day, maximum. Then I fall down. I cannot live without water. I cannot live without food. I cannot do all these kinds of things. Now I'm completely limited in all the aspects of how I see myself. This is, of course, not how God created me. Obviously not. But it has become my reality. I think that that is me, and that is it, and that everything is in fact confirming that I am that, while I'm not that. So this is what you have done. So it's like there's a hypnosis taking place, and incredible hypnosis, thinking that there's something else but God. Well, God is the totality of everything that you could possibly wish for, want, or am. But you got the alternative. You got a little thing for yourself. It's based on littleness, on smallness, on lack, limitation, and incompletion, conflict, war, murder. Well, I don't have to give you a description of the world that you find yourself in. You know exactly how that is. So that has all nothing to do with the idea of God is. Has no relationship to it, because it is literally made out of nothing. It is literally made as an alternative, as a complete alternative for the totality of God. This is in fact what Joel is saying. So you cannot have the totality of God and something else. Now this is a healing principle, you could say. If you come from planet Earth, see yourself as a human being, full of limitation, full of all kinds of things that are nagging you, all kinds of fearful ideas ready to go for the future, having a history of terror, of limitation, of survival, of cruelty, of abuse, of all these things, history, future full of fear. This is where you find yourself. It's like you made all that as a replacement for the totality of the love of God, for the totality of you. And that's why we say, like, in fact, you're the embodiment of the denial of the love of God. But it doesn't need to stay that way, of course. Luckily not. Because it is not that way. So the hypnosis needs to end. And Joel will come to that in the chapter 2. It's like there's a dehypnotization necessary in order for you to return back to reality with a capital R. That has nothing to do with your ideas, that has nothing to do with how you see yourself, that has nothing to do with how you see the world. None of that has nothing to do with it. So that's basically here we are. This is our position here. This is where we find ourselves in our awakening. Whatever that is, of course, the awakening. What is that awakening? So this is interesting. Now let's see. Joel has more to say. I'm not gonna run too far forward. Just keeping the pace of the chapter. The moment you see God and something else, you are hypnotized. Then you can't get rid of the appearance. I probably misspelled that. You can't get rid of the appearance. Oh, let me check out the book. The moment you see God and, because we got to do it right. Let me see. Yeah. The moment you see God and is on page 106. The moment you see God and, you are hypnotized. The moment you see a mortal material world, you are hypnotized. And then from then on, there's no possible way to get rid of the appearance. Yeah, there's no possible way to get rid of the appearance. So that's good to know. It's like, well, I will change that. You can't get rid of the appearance. Literally, it's impossible. So for you, that is really hard to do. If you can agree there is God, which means you can accept an infinite power of good, certainly, then you must be able to understand that there cannot be error, disease, or death. Oops. So if you can agree that there is a God, which means you accept an infinite power of good, certainly you must then be able to understand that there cannot be error, disease, and death. In fact, Joel says, it's kind of interesting, not since time began has there ever been a single death in the kingdom of God. Neither was it before time began. So this is good stuff, isn't it? It's like, wow, yeah, we needed to hear this in this chapter. We needed to, in this book, we needed to hear this. Like there's the totality of God, and now, is there something else? No, there is not. And we have a dilemma here, because we're sitting here in our, with our good intentions of listening to this, and good intentions to be willing to let a change occur in our consciousness, to experience something else. But now we have something in the way, and that's the way that we perceive ourselves, and we think that we are who we are. Now, how are we going to undo that? Like, how is it possible that you can come to know who you truly are? What do I need to do for that? Interesting question. It's like, how do you do that? How can you become dehypnotized? Can you do that yourself? No, you cannot. You cannot do it yourself, because otherwise you would have done it. Now, if you recognize that you're not this, you must be something else as God created you, and you want to know what that is. And most natural idea, like the most natural desire you could possibly have. I want to know who I truly am. It does not have anything to do with my definitions. It has nothing to do with how I see the world or anything. No. So there's a possibility for me to experience that. But how do I get to that? That's in fact. And then, and kind of a disappointing message is that you can't. The way that you see yourself, you cannot see the kingdom. You cannot take that with you. The way that you see yourself and this world, you cannot take that with you to the truth of you. Like that literally cannot coexist. It cannot be in the same place. So that's why we speak of the rebirth. That's why there's a metamorphosis that is taking place in this process of suddenly you come to realize who you truly are. And that will have to be given to you, because you cannot do that yourself. No, you have created yourself as this, or you made yourself, could say better, because it's a fantasy, it's a dream. So you made up yourself as this, say, separate entity, separate from God. which is a total impossibility, sure, but you did it that way. Now you are not able to help yourself to get out of it. Obviously, since you define yourself as the limitation, you cannot look beyond your limitation. No, you will fit everything into your hypnosis. You literally fit everything in, even spiritual ideas. You fit into your limited sense of self. You try to figure it out. You try to understand what's going on. You try to find a way to get out of it. And you made it so perfectly hermetic, you could say, there's no way out of it for you to do that. This is important to know. So that's, yeah, give up even to try. There's no way you can do that, because you've defined yourself as this enclosure, you could say, as this encapsulated entity, separate and apart from God. You really think that you are that. So this is what Joel said in one of the first expressions, like, once you think there's a God and you're locked in. You're locked into your limitation. You literally, suddenly, whoops, there's the cocoon of nothingness that you give value to in order to have some kind of existence. So how fundamental this is, how essential it is to hear this, to have this in the last, on the last meeting, in the last chapter of the book. It's like, wow, luckily that came in there. That's wonderful, because it's in fact one that you could start with. That's really great. So we were prepared in order to come to this chapter and actually receive an essential instruction. So far we didn't receive it yet, because we don't know yet how to get out of our hypnosis. We're stuck in it. We experience sickness, pain, death, war, conflict, global warming, who knows? You name it. So what will be the next? Well, Joe, bring it on. We're gonna see it. So to make sure, if you can agree there's a God, there's God, which means you accept an infinite power of good, harmony, perfection, abundance, certainly then you must be able to understand that there cannot be error, disease or death. In fact, not ever since time began has there been a single death in the kingdom, because the whole idea of death doesn't exist at all. Thou could have no power at all against me, is what Jesus said to Pilate. Thou could have no power at all against me, except if it were given thee from above. Otherwise it would have no effect. And Jill uses this very specifically. Dehypnotism is a state of consciousness that sees that which actually is the ability to hear, to see, to smell, to touch reality. Dehypnotism is a state of consciousness that sees that which actually is the ability to see, hear, smell, touch reality. The truth is that all there is infinite God and its creation. That's all there is. There's nothing else. To understand reality, we must understand that spirit alone is real, since spirit is infinite. So all that there is, in truth, is the infinite God and its creation. There's nothing else. To understand reality, we must understand that spirit alone is real, since spirit is infinite. So now Joel doesn't actually tell us how to become dehypnotized. So let's see if we can find something in the book that will tell us that. First, I want to read the instruction of the editor about this chapter, this specific chapter that they added, and then we come back to the other part. Important editor's note, it says, we have added an important bonus chapter in this collection, one that has become a classic in the Infinite Way writings, chapter 9, No End, from the Realization of Oneness. In a talk given in Hawaii in 1964, Joel previewed the upcoming April monthly letter for distribution to students worldwide. Our monthly 1964 letter will constitute another textbook of the Infinite Way practice, and in the April letter you will find the basic unique principles of the Infinite Way. I would rather say the essence of them, in about as condensed a form as I have ever seen them. Later in the talk he emphasized the entire year is going to be devoted to the healing ministry. But these 2 months, April and May, are actually the condensed healing principles that are unique to this message. This letter of April 64 appeared as the chapter No End in the book Realization of Oneness, which was published after Joel's passing in June 64. And we felt these direct words of Joel were a stamp of approval to include this beloved chapter in A New Horizon. So that's the reason why they put it in there. Now that's really lovely. So they did it with great care, you can tell, huh? Now we have to find how we can become dehypnotized. Oh my God, imagine that we don't find it. So there are some expressions. The dehypnotized consciousness sees reality. Yeah, we know this. The only way, it says here on page 109, the only way this can be accomplished is through spiritual consciousness. First of all, we must know this. We cannot cure a disease. There is none. We cannot overcome poverty. There is none. We cannot overcome death. There is none. The only thing we can do is to recognize that we are not dealing with those appearances and suggestions as such. We are dealing with hypnotism. And Joel brings it back to the truth is that all there is infinite God and its creation. So it's like you have to understand that, say that reality is all, that spirit is one, that spirit is all. Like spirit is the totality. Now you see, like recognizing that you are that would be giving up your idea about what you think you are and recognizing yourself as spirit. Now that is a process of allowing that change to occur. Like we said, the rebirth that is taking place, in fact. Like you allow a rebirth to take place. There's no other way that can happen. You cannot figure it out. With your understanding, you cannot reason yourself out of your obstruction. Otherwise you would have done it and you would have been successful. And you're not. Like you will never be able to do that. So that's why we say, like, well, into thy hands I command my spirit. Like, into thy hands I command my spirit. This would be the words of Jesus. Like, I command my, say, everything that I see myself as, I give that to you. And everything that is in fact the totality of me, I hand it over to you. Every idea that I hold about myself, I hand it over to Spirit. Because that is what I am. That is the totality of the reality of me, is Spirit. So this is the bridging part of Spirit. Spirit knows. Say, I can relate to Spirit. I can literally be inspirited, right? If we meditate, if we pray, we can be inspirited, inspired. And this is great. So like the dehypnotism will take place if we command everything that we think we are into the hands of Spirit, and see that it can be used, it's like in a constructive way for ourselves, coming back to us as an experience of the connectedness. But there will not be another way. So it's like, this is the way to go. Hand everything over to Spirit continuously, because that's your only place to go. He's the bridge between, say, you as you see yourself and God. So there must be prayers in the book or in the parentheses in eternity, like about this. It's like the handing over of everything to Spirit. Like Spirit is my recognition of my totality, of my truth. I give everything to that. Like the same idea would be like love thy God with all of thy heart. So to give that everything, it's like you cannot hold on to anything, any idea about yourself and love God totally. No, your love of God will be so total that you have no hands to hold on to anything. Or no lips to speak. We saw this somewhere else too. It's like it doesn't even have lips to speak anymore. It's like if you love your God with all of your heart, your mind and your soul, and with all of your spirit, then there's the transfer taking place. Like it's just in fact part of the law. And literally, it's like, what is the most important law? They asked Jesus. Well, there are two. Like, love thy God with all of thy heart, with all of thy soul, with all of thy spirit, all of the totalness of you, and your neighbor as yourself, because he is yourself. So here's the procedure. The healing procedure is this: handing continuously this over. When I meditate, hand it over. Hand your world. Hand your any idea that you hold about yourself or that you're experiencing, any experience that you have, any kind of situation that you don't know what to do with, hand it over to Spirit. This is all happening within you. It's not happening anywhere else. So like that will grow the certainty in you, and say of that there is an alternative, that you say you can go back to remembering of heaven in you. Seek first the kingdom that is within me. It's not anywhere else. So this is also with Spirit. Spirit is the bridge between you as you see yourself and the God experience that is waiting for you. So handing everything over to that, it will come back to me as a constructive experience, not just for me, for everyone involved, like for everyone that is related to me, for everything that is related to me. It will literally change the world, you could say. It will change everything. Because you're actually not just doing that for you. It's like, no, the return is in fact to have this prodigal son return home. Like there will be a celebration for heaven, for all of heaven. It is a continual celebration of your homecoming. Like that is a total possibility. A total possibility. So when is that happening? When do you want that to happen? When do you want to let that occur? Well, it happens immediately when you are willing to love your God with all of your heart and your soul and your spirit. When you're willing to let go of your ideas about what you think is going on here. When you are done with it, in fact, done playing with the limitation, done validating the limitation and let the limitation confirm you in your separate identity. When you're done with that, when you have sufficient pain, you could say, you want to be released of all of this. So there's no sacrifice included in this whatsoever. That's the great part. Okay, so let me read a little bit, because the chapter is very readable, and I'm reading across the desk. I always love that too. It's like, okay, there's the log of Joel. In March, Joel says, this is 64, huh? So it's just like a couple of months before his passing. In March, we traveled to California, and in May, we start on another trip to go to the United States and Europe. Again, we will experience the joy of meeting with those who have dedicated themselves to God. We are ever mindful of the many revelators of spiritual wisdom whose lives have been consecrated to God's purpose, and of those who have devoted themselves to carrying on their work. Even to think of Zarathustra, of Lao Tse, of Buddha, of Jesus Christ and Shankara, is to find oneself on holy ground. There are many others too, who inspire us because we witness the nature of their consecration. There is another form of dedication which we meet in the lives of those who have surrendered their personal sense of life to give themselves. Yes, dedicated themselves to the cause of freedom. And this is the consecration to loving one's neighbor as himself. These unselfed souls brought forth the freedom of England, France, Holland, Switzerland, countries in the North and South America, as well as others throughout the world. Many now are devoting themselves to worthy causes in different parts of the world. Some have given themselves to youth in the work of the YMCA and the YWCA, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, to the poor through their work in the Salvation Army, and to the suffering by carrying food and clothing to friendly and enemy countries. Such movements as CARE and the Peace Corps demonstrate love in concrete form. This dedication to God expressed as consecration to our neighbor's need, ennobles the lives of those who are called and furnishes inspiration to the rest of us, so that we, too, may rise above the deadness and dullness of human living. Real living begins only when inspiration enters, in spirit enters. Self-completedness is attained only in giving and serving. Freedom is attained in consecration, and peace is found in dedication. When the Spirit of God touches us, like He's doing right now, when the Spirit of God touches us, there follows an unrest and a disquiet, a lack of satisfaction with the ordinary human experience. And this persists until we find ourselves serving God in our neighbor and resting in God. When the Spirit of God touches us, there follows an unrest, a disquiet, a lack of satisfaction with the ordinary human experience. And this persists until we find ourselves serving God in our neighbor and resting in Him. And one way or the other, it's like serving God in our neighbor, one way or the other. Like in many, many, many ways it can be done. Wow. And as you go further in the work, it continues. And as you go further in the work and through meditation are able to rise to a point where you are above this world of limitation, then you will know me as I am, And I will know you as you are, as I am. That is how healings take place, and that is why I caution our students not to tell people that they must correct themselves, not to refuse patients because they do not seem to be doing what they think is right. That has nothing to do with the student. He must go within and see the person he is trying to help as God made him, and then the patient will soon confirm to the pattern shewed to thee in the mount. So there's no way of correcting themselves. Like they must, I caution our students, Joel says, not to tell people that they must correct themselves. So this is exactly what I was saying. It's like you cannot get yourself out of this limitation, out of this thing that you have made in your dream. You cannot get yourself out of it. So there's no way of trying to correct and give you different instructions to get out of it. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. No, it's by you handing everything over to spirit. Like it needs to come from outside of your bubble, outside of your limitation. The help comes from there. It cannot come from anywhere else. Within your dream, you say literally use everything to stay where you are. So any kind of advice that you get, any kind of so like you should try this or try that, or why don't you read this and read that, that will take you out of it. And like no, it's always about inspiration. It's gonna come to you from outside of this frame that you have created for yourself as a limitation. So that's in fact the no end chapter that we share. So this is also then the end of the book as we know it, but the beginning to actually discover more of the new horizon. Like that journey does not end. It's always a new horizon. Like there's always something new opening up. It's not a static thing. It's not, okay, now we have discovered the horizon. No, a horizon doesn't end. It's limitless. As long as you don't fall off Earth, like we thought in the old days. So here there's no threat at all. No, it will continue. You can keep discovering the horizon and always look for it in your meditations. Like go to the outer edges of your consciousness to discover more, because there's always more to discover. This is an infinite universe and you are that. Like it has no limitation. So why would you think like, okay, the way it is now is fine? It's like, no, there's always more. It's not greed that moves you there. No, it's like this is part of you and as a creative principle. All right, so thank you, Joel, for this. Thank you, Joel, for bringing these essential chapters to us. And thank you for the publisher to actually publish chapter 9 too in it. That's really great. That was beautiful to end with in this series that we have entertained, you could say, or have undergone. And so thank you for your presence and your attention to actually listen to this and undergo this while we're speaking of it. So thank you for that, for your dedication to be present here. That's totally appreciated. And thank you all for supporting this also. Like there's also financial support coming in. That's always very helpful too, because it's great. This is how everything moves, you know. It's like, yeah, give. Why not give? Like that just keeps it going. I speak from deep experience in that. Like it's so lovely to see that. So thank you so much, and see you soon.